So I gotta say, having never seen this movie before, I thought Candyman was pretty sweet. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel and a brand new review series. With the upcoming release of Candyman, I'm first going to talk about the other three films in the franchise, since I've never actually seen any of them. It's actually one of the few major horror franchises that I just never got around to, and now I have an excuse. So, once I review all of them, as well as 2021's Candyman, I'll do a ranking of all four movies. And first, we're talking about the original film, 1992's Candyman. So let me know in the comments before we begin what your thoughts on Candyman were in the comments below, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my channel out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie-related content on a near-daily basis. But let's jump right into it, and let's talk about Candyman. This stars Tony Todd as the Candyman, a murderous soul with a hook for a hand who's accidentally summoned to reality by a skeptic grad student named Helen, played by Virginia Madsen, who's researching the monsters myth. This is written and directed by Bernard Rose, and it's based off the short story The Forbidden by Clive Barker, whose works I've never actually read, though I have seen Hellraiser and I quite enjoy that. I also saw Books of Blood on Hulu, which adapted his short stories, but we don't need to talk about that. This mixes an investigative mystery with supernatural horror as well as some slasher elements, with our main character Helen doing a deep dive into urban legends and trying to get to the heart of the Candyman mystery, while also having to deal with the entity himself wreaking havoc on her and her loved ones. And what I really liked is, while this does have all the usual blood and gore that goes into a typical slasher film, this also does a good job of feeling like a nice hard-boiled mystery as well, and does a great job of bringing up some intriguing ideas that it mostly follows through on. It doesn't just overly rely on Tony Todd as the title villain, as we don't even see him until about 45 minutes in, and more on him in a minute. But instead, this is a film that knows how to effectively engage its audience and build each situation so that every scene feels more high stakes than the last. We start things off with Helen investigating the rumor that someone was possibly killed by the Candyman, so we look into that, then we get to the legend itself, and we build on all that backstory, and then we get into the heavier slasher elements. And when we do get to the actual Candyman, it was awesome. Tony Todd's performance alone single-handedly makes this movie worth watching. I was very impressed here, as I hadn't even seen a piece of footage prior to sitting down to watching the movie in full, so I honestly had no idea what to expect. But he was great, and while he had a great physical presence, his voice is what truly makes it. I don't know if there was too much done to enhance his voice or anything, but it just booms anytime he opens his mouth, and he utters each line with just this eerie sinisterness to him that it's enough to send chills up your spine. Once we hear his first few lines, anytime we see him after, even before he opens his mouth, just because we now know how menacing he sounds, it's enough for you to immediately be creeped out by him. Now, interestingly enough, Eddie Murphy was the original choice to play the character, and while I would have been intrigued to see him take on such a role, as we never really saw him in a full-on horror movie outside of some horror comedies, now having seen this, it's hard to see anyone but Tony Todd in the role, because he just crushes it here. I also liked how a good job was done in giving him a solid backstory and making him a very tragic villain too. Now, while Barker's original story took place in Liverpool and examined elements of the British class system, this film changed the setting to Chicago to examine themes of race and social class in America. And while the film only explores so much of who Candyman is after his physical introduction, it was still an interesting element to introduce, because while the Candyman is as terrifying here as some of your other iconic horror villains, he's not like Freddy Krueger, who was terrible before dying, or Michael Myers, who's simply just pure evil. This is someone who, at this point, is now driven by making sure people don't forget who he was or what his legacy is, with his own motivation here being that his legend has been discredited and that he can't allow for that to be. So that's why he goes after Helen and her loved ones in the second half of the film. And given the circumstances behind his death years prior and why he's so hell-bent on revenge, I found it to be this interesting mix of social commentary, as it's a society essentially trying to cover up its past sins, and the Candyman coming back is the manifestation of this attempted cover-up's consequences. So I found that to be really intriguing, and it added an extra layer of depth to this character. And when we do get to the second half of this film, where the Candyman is wreaking havoc, it starts going going all out, delivering to the audience on all the buildup from the little teases and mysterious elements laid out to us in the first half. And it is bloody and brutal, with some imagery that can be really uncomfortable, in particular its use of bees, but for slasher fans who were eagerly awaiting for the Candyman to be let loose, they won't be disappointed here. And while I did say that Tony Todd's performance alone is enough to make this worth watching, it's worth noting there are other solid elements to this as well. We also get a pretty strong protagonist in Helen. Now, while she isn't one of the most well-known protagonists in a horror movie or anything, she's someone who we grow to care for throughout all this, mainly for just how she gets so in-depth with uncovering and attempting to debunk the Candyman legacy, and how the conflict between her and the Candyman becomes very personal. As a result, I grew to care for her character, and I thought Virginia Madsen did a solid job here. And there was a solid gothic feel that went into this as well. The soundtrack was very loud and moody, but never really obnoxious. It always did a nice job of setting the mysterious tone well. As I mentioned, some of the imagery was unsettling, and we even get this through the relationship explored between Helen and the Candyman, which gives off these jilted lover vibes, which makes sense as we get deeper into the backstory. But it's worth noting that both Bernard Rose and Tony Todd have described the Candyman as being primarily a romantic figure, and romance has often been explored in gothic stories. He's even been called something in the vein of an Edgar Allan Poe character, and through the mood that's set here, I'd say that's a fitting comparison. And all that combined makes for an engaging horror movie. Though I do have to mention some criticisms here, as I don't think this is a perfect film by any means. I will say that some of these elements I mentioned that I do like also led to some things I didn't like so much. Regarding the more romantic elements, as I said, for the most part, it was cool, especially just for the way that Tony Todd delivered his lines. But some of the things he said do come off as a tad corny. Like, I had a hard time taking the line, "be my victim," seriously, which is something he says multiple times here. I just found that line in particular, among a few others here and there, to be a bit on the campier side in some ways, and it was just so silly that it didn't totally fit with the film's overall tone. And while the Candyman on the Loose is a lot of fun in terms of just some solid bloody violence, some story elements could have been done a little better for me, because this winds up playing into a trope that we've seen in horror movies, thrillers, murder mysteries, and a lot of other related genres, and that's the innocent victim who's wrongly accused. I get that what drives the Candyman is that people don't believe in his legend anymore, but what he does as a result also leads to Helen getting wrongly accused of the crimes he commits. And I feel that's a trope that was already done to death by the time we got to 1992, so it especially feels even more tiring when watching it now. Now, it still led to some cool scenarios that I did enjoy, and at the very least, I did like how the Candyman causing all this havoc just makes Helen's life a living hell, and it just takes its toll on her mentally. But I would have just liked had it leaned into those elements more, and that it worked its way around this innocent person getting wrongly accused trope that we've seen so many times before. And then some of the ways it brings everything together in the final act, while coherent, do come off as a little cheesy, especially when getting into Helen and Candyman's relationship. I think the way it ultimately brings them together could have been done a little bit differently, as that felt a bit cliched as well, without getting into spoilers. I think I would have liked it even more had it just kept it as this skeptical person who goes so deep into the Candyman lore that's just put through this psychological hell upon discovering the Candyman, without resorting to some of these genre cliches like her getting wrongly accused of crimes he committed or anything. But to be clear, these criticisms did not ruin the movie for me or anything, and in the end, I still had a good time with it. Candyman is a solid, effectively made horror movie. I wouldn't say it's one of my new favorite horror films of all time or anything, but I definitely enjoyed it. While some elements do come off as a bit cheesy and it resorts to some genre cliches, I did like its effective mixing of mystery and slasher elements, providing us some really great moody atmosphere along with bloodier moments that should satisfy slasher fans. And it's anchored by two solid performances from both Virginia Madsen as well as Tony Todd, who alone makes this worth checking out. It was a nice way to kick off this franchise, and it's a film I found to be worth the watch. Candyman gets a 7 out of 10. So stay tuned, as up next will be my review of Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. But in the meantime, let me know, did you see Candyman, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Is this one of your favorite horror franchises? Are you looking forward to the new movie? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.